Welcome to the Purposely Aligned Entrepreneur Podcast presented by Boss Girl Creative. This is episode number 458. Today, I'm talking about having audacity in your business. Now let's dive in.
Have you already found business success but feel lonely at the top? Or do you feel like you're at a place in your business where others just don't get it? Or maybe you feel like you have to make yourself smaller in order for others to not feel less than. Or maybe just a little bit of all three. But with all that said, there is good news because I've been there and I see you, sister. I'm Taylor Bradford, the torchbearer of this podcast and sisterhood, and I'm here to lead and inspire you to stay purposely aligned in the success you have found and provide you with support, guidance, and a sisterhood to keep going. Because I do get it. Your business journey isn't meant to be traveled alone. So grab a notebook, your favorite pen, and a bevy, and let's dive into this together with this latest podcast episode. Welcome to the Purposely Aligned Entrepreneur Podcast presented by Boss Girl Creative and me.
Hello, welcome to this episode of the Purposely Aligned Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Taylor Bradford. Thank you so much for tuning in. I so appreciate you being here and listening to this episode. If you're brand new to the show, welcome. If you're a longtime listener, also welcome back. I'm so excited that we are talking about having audacity in business. I'm going to give you the lead up to what I actually mean by that because it's a funny story with where I'm coming from with talking about having audacity in business. Before we get there, let's find out what's been going on in social media land. Social media headline number 1, Meta considers new elements for its verified subscription package. Meta's testing the waters on new incentives to drive verified take-up. Social media headline number 2, TikTok pushes back against proposed sell-off bill ahead of the House vote this week. Will TikTok actually be forced into U.S. ownership? Social media headline number 3, TikTok adds search insights to better inform content strategies. Valuable new insights for TikTok creators are now available. Social media headline number 4, keeping with TikTok, they announced a revamped creator rewards program to incentivize longer uploads. These new incentives are for top TikTok creators. Social media headline number 5, Instagram is experimenting with a new spins option to facilitate trend participation, a new way to encourage participation via Reels. Social media headline number 6, keeping with Instagram, they are experimenting with an option to add files to DMs. This is another step in Meta's messaging integration plan. And that wraps up this week's social media headlines. Okay, so let's dive in to the fact that I'm talking about having audacity in your business. So I am down in Round Top this week on a buying trip for Sugar Creek, and I have been visiting with some of my favorite vendor friends who I actively shop through and buy from. And 2 of my favorites have moved venues, and this is actually their second show in the new venue. Both of them were in different spaces on the property, and now they are in the same space as they used to be when they were out in the Bar W fields. And so it's been really fun to see them create a new space and bring all of their fun vintage finds. And they are sharing a roof with another vendor who is an artist out of Austin. And I happened to walk through the space and I was like, wow, okay. It's very sparse. The art is very abstract, I guess, very minimalist. Maybe abstract's not the right word. And they're not framed. It's just canvases hung on the walls. It's very white. It's very light and airy in there. There's some art on the floor, and some of my leather vendor, some of his items are in the space to kind of give more structure to the space. And so I'm having a conversation with my friends, and they're like, did you check out the artist next door? And I'm like, well, sort of. And so they were like, let me take you over there. And so they took me over there, and honestly, I'm not wowed by the art at all. I actually think it's very simplistic. I honestly think a toddler could paint it, or someone with not a lot of art training or art skill or painting skill. But what do I know? I'm not an artist. I don't know what it takes to create a piece like what is up on the wall and what is down on the floor. And so they're like, what do you think these things are selling for? And I'm like, well, I don't have any frame of reference. So you could tell me that they are $200, or you could tell me that they're several $1,000s, and I wouldn't know the difference. But what I'm seeing on the walls doesn't look that expensive. It doesn't look luxury as far as what I deem to be luxury, right? Again, it's all subjective. And my friend was like, well, that piece right there, which is a fairly substantial size piece, is probably a 10-foot wide canvas, maybe 8 foot tall. It's fairly large. And he said they are asking $15,000. And my jaw hit the floor. Because again, this is my opinion. Art is subjective. I mean, there's a variety of artists in the world. You know, we've got I don't even know, Jackson Pollock. We have Monet. We have Picasso. Like, there's so many different types of art in the world. But my jaw's on the floor, and I'm thinking to myself, this feels like snake oil. This feels audacious. What is it that they're actually selling? And who's buying it? Who is the buyer for this type of art? And he was like, well, this painting right here, this painting on canvas is probably an 18 by 18 canvas. And he said a buyer out of Miami rolled through here and bought 2 of them, and they were $7,500 a piece. And again, it looks like grease stains on a canvas. And I am just shook, like dumbfounded. But I have to step back because, I'm a coach, I'm a teacher. I have to step back and look at the bigger picture. Look at the audacity that this artist has in a good way for their business. And then I start looking at what Sugar Creek does and what it is that I provide. I set out a long time ago and said, I want to be different. I will be different. I will not be like my competitors. I will not be a commodity, even though I am a commodity. I will sell an experience. I will sell relationships. I will sell that this is more than just a rental. What I want you to experience with Sugar Creek is not currently being offered in my market. Not only my market, but outside of my market. What I do is different. How I curate my collection is different. How I decide what I'm adding is different. I want to be different on purpose. I want to have the audacity to do things differently. And that is exactly what this artist is doing in this space next to my friends. I think it's a she or they. They have the audacity to put a canvas piece of material with paint on it on the wall without a frame. There's no experience to be had in their space outside of it's bright and white. My friend's vintage leather furniture happens to be around this space to give some structure, like I mentioned. But there's no calming smells. There's no soothing music. It's just a space. And she or they has the audacity to sell the art for tens of thousands of dollars or thousands of dollars, depending on the size. And who am I to say your pricing is too high? Who am I to say that when I have chosen to be different in my own businesses, to push against the grain, to be audacious in business? Who am I to judge? Who am I to say, you're out of your mind? Because somebody could look at my business and say the same thing. Recently, I had an inquiry, and I believe they were wanting some kind of candle holder. Maybe they wanted something else. I don't really recall. But in their inquiry, where I state emphatically that I am a delivery-only company and your minimum investment level is this much money, do you want to proceed with your inquiry, yes or no? Do you understand this is your minimum investment level? And they wrote legitimately, I just want to pick it up. Can we waive the delivery fees? That's being audacious. That is trying to create a business or trying to do something in business that wasn't meant to be. Trying to bend the rule. Well, I can already tell you, you're not my ideal customer if you're asking me to bend my own rule. Like, why would I legitimately spell it out for you in my inquiry process that this is not an option? Yet you still ask me to make it an option. Why would I bend the rule for you if it's a well-stated rule? It is splashed all over my website, not just my inquiry form. So I go back to standing in this space and having multiple conversations, because it's all that some of them can talk about at this moment until the next thing, rolls around. But it's like, they're like, how? This is a ripoff. This is a scam. This is snake oil. This is, ruining the artist 2 doors down. I'm like, I can see where you're coming from. I can also see why being this bold, brazen, audacious is working for them. So then you start thinking, or I started thinking, when do you become a teacher? When do you become an artist? When do you become a coach? Like when someone says you are, or when you decide you are? When does it happen? When do you get to say, these are my rates? When do you get to charge more? Who makes that decision? You do. You get to decide when you're the teacher. You get to decide when you're the coach. You get to decide when it is the thing you want it to be. And then you get to decide when your rates go up or what your rates are going to start out at. You get to make those decisions. Now, whether or not someone will buy from you will still be TBD, because obviously you do still have to test the market. These artists in this space, I don't know if it's 1 or 2 or 3 or whom it is, they've tested the market. They've already made sales, which further strengthens their clout. It's working. They tested the market and it's working. So why would they do anything different? Now, I will say the part that does get me a little riled up is when I hear someone say, if I see a customer come in and they have a large rock on their finger, I'm going to charge them more. Now that is when you do become the used car salesman. That is when you start selling snake oil. In my book, that is when you are no longer true to the brand you created and the art you made. That's when you cross the line. When the price is no longer the price and the price is now subjective. Like how does that work and how is that sustainable? Because I can tell you people talk. People absolutely talk. So I do think that part is a misstep. But maybe that's what happens in the art world. I have no idea. I've never been in the art world, so I don't really know. But to be that bold by saying if they walk in and have large jewelry on their hands, they're carrying designer bags, they're wearing designer clothing, then I charge more. I mean, I can say that as a business owner, specifically for Sugar Creek, if I learn or start experiencing like something challenging with a client or a venue based on load in or like how much is going in and how hard the load in is, then yes, I'm adding a PITA fee. I'm absolutely charging more. And that comes in two scenarios. I'm charging more to outcharge the client because I have realized I don't really want to work with this client, so I'm going to outcharge them. Or it's due to work, actual work effort. So I do have a PITA fee. So I understand, working with a difficult client or working because like the work effort is way more challenging. Like there was one instance where we did a backyard wedding and I should have done a site visit because it was a private residence, but I trusted the planner who brought me on to work with their client. And they were like, oh yes, you can come in through the very back. You can get your truck and trailer in and you'll be right there at the load in point. And I arrived and there was no way a 28-foot trailer and my truck were coming in the back end. And so we had to load in from the driveway, which meant we walked downstairs to a pool that had a raised deck. And then we had to step down onto the yard area, which was a 2-foot drop off, and then walk the tables, farm tables that are 11 feet long, and the chairs. I think there were probably 70 chairs. We had to do that on load in and load out. That deserved a PITA fee, but I trusted the planner in that particular instance and went off the fact that I was supposedly able to drive right up to the access point, which failed to be true. So it just meant we were on site for a lot longer than we actually should have been. That deserved a PITA fee. And I have had clients where I'm like, oh, they're going to be really challenging. I don't really think I want to work with them. So I'm going to add more money to see if I can outprice them. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But so I understand the concept of this PITA fee. But to just outright say I'm going to charge more based on what they appear to have, I really, I'm not a proponent to that. I just don't support that. I think that's super smarmy. So please don't play that game. Please don't play that game. All of this to say and to go back to, I do think our businesses do deserve some audacity from us. I do. I think that going back to, when are you a coach? Well, when you decide to be a coach. When are you a teacher? Well, when you decide you're going to be a teacher. All of that has audacity attached to it. And I hope that you start thinking about this topic. I hope that you're like, oh, I can totally see Audacity in my business, or I can totally see Audacity in so-and-so's business. We are literally writing our own rule book. We are writing our own rule book. We get that. We get to do that as business owners. And I think that that's so incredibly powerful. Just don't overstep the smarmy line, please. Okay, so that wraps up this week's episode. I hope you found it inspiring. If you did, I hope you'll consider sharing the podcast episode or just the podcast in general with somebody else in the business trenches just like you. And until next week, I hope you have a great rest of this one.
Oh, wait, before I go, thank you truly for your support of my own business journey and this podcast, The Purposely Aligned Entrepreneur. If you know another entrepreneur who is in the same business trenches, who has already found success but might be feeling a bit lonely in their journey, my hope is that you'll share this podcast and this sisterhood with them. Because this, what we do day in and day out, isn't meant to be done alone. Speaking of lonely, if you're ready to squash the business journey loneliness, stop what you're doing right now and join the sisterhood. Visit bossgirlcreative.com/sisterhood. I can't wait to see you in there.